If you're over 40 and still living paycheck to paycheck, this video is going to hit close to home. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying it because I've sat across the table from hundreds of people in their 40s and 50s who all told me the same thing. I make decent money, so why does it still feel like I'm barely surviving? Somewhere along the way, no one taught you how the system actually works. They taught you how to earn. They didn't teach you how to be trusted by money. And in America, trust is measured by one number, your credit score, specifically 700. A 700 credit score is the line between struggling and breathing. Below it, everything costs more. Above it, doors quietly start opening. Lower interest, better approvals, fewer deposits, more options. And yet millions of hardworking adults never cross that line, not because they're irresponsible, but because they're following bad advice. Today, I'm going to walk you through 6 steps that actually move your credit towards 700 and beyond. Not hacks, not gimmicks, a system. But here's the part you need to hear carefully. These 6 steps only work if you do them in the right order. Get that order wrong, and you can waste years spinning your wheels. Stay with me, because the 5th and 6th steps are where most people unknowingly sabotage themselves. Let's start with the reality no one likes to admit. A credit score is not a reflection of how smart you are or how hard you work. It's a behavioral score. It tracks consistency, restraint, and patience. That's why so many high-income people still have weak credit. They move fast. They react emotionally. They try to fix everything at once, and the system punishes that. The first thing you need to understand is what a 700 score actually signals to lenders. It says you're predictable. You pay when you say you will. You don't panic. You don't overextend. From a bank's perspective, that makes you low risk, and low risk gets rewarded. The gap between a 620 score and a 700 score can mean tens of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Higher car payments, higher mortgage rates, higher insurance premiums, even job opportunities can quietly disappear. This is why staying stuck below 700 is so exhausting. You're constantly paying a penalty without realizing it. Now here's where most people mess up. They think improving credit means doing more. More cards, more activity, more applications, more movement. In reality, better credit comes from doing less, but doing it correctly. Step 1 is the foundation, and if this piece is unstable, nothing else matters. But here's the twist. Almost everyone thinks they're already doing step 1 right. They're not. They tell me, I pay my bills. But paying bills is not the same as paying on time, every time, without exception, and in a way the credit system prefers. There's a massive difference between intention and execution here, and I'll break that down in a moment. Before that, I need you to understand step 2 because it works quietly in the background, and it's one of the fastest levers you have. Credit utilization. This is where people destroy their score without missing a single payment. You can be responsible and still look risky on paper. And the worst part is, the damage doesn't feel like damage until you apply for something important and get denied. We'll come back to exactly how low your balances should really be, because the advice most people follow is outdated. Step 3 is where emotional decisions hurt you. Closing old cards, cleaning up, simplifying. It feels responsible, it feels mature, and it quietly knocks points off your score. Credit history length matters more than most people realize, especially after 40. The system rewards longevity, not neatness. Step 4 is patience. And this is where desperation ruins progress. Applying too often. Shopping for credit like it's a sale. Every inquiry tells a story, and the story lenders don't like is urgency. Step 5 is the one strategy that can accelerate everything if you understand timing. I call it the 2-payment method. It's simple, legal, and incredibly effective, but almost no one uses it correctly. And step 6 is the silent killer, or the silent savior, depending on whether you ignore it or check it. Your credit report itself. Errors, old data, things you forgot about that are still quietly holding you back. That step alone has added 40 to 60 points for people who thought they were doing everything right. But none of this matters if you don't slow down and rebuild the foundation properly. So let's go back to step 1 and do it the right way. Step 1 is not just paying your bills. It's building an unbroken record of trust. Payment history makes up the largest portion of your score. One late payment can haunt you for years. And here's the hard truth. Life doesn't care about your intentions. The credit system doesn't either. Missed payments usually don't happen because people don't have money. They happen because people rely on memory instead of systems. The simplest fix is automation. Auto pay the minimum on every account. Not because the minimum is ideal, but because it protects your record. You can always pay extra manually. You can't undo a late mark. If you only fix one thing after watching this video, fix that. Because consistency beats intensity every single time. In the next part, I'm going to show you how people with average incomes quietly build 700 plus scores without stress by mastering utilization and timing. This is where scores start moving. Now let's move to the part that surprises almost everyone I work with. This is where scores quietly rise or silently collapse, even when you think you're doing everything right. Step 2 is credit utilization, and I want you to forget most of what you've been told about it. You've probably heard the rule, stay under 30%. That rule is outdated. It's not wrong, but it's lazy advice. 30% is the minimum for not hurting your score badly. It is not the level that builds strong credit fast. The credit system rewards restraint, not tolerance. It wants to see that you can borrow and not lean on it. Utilization is simply the percentage of your available credit that you're using when your statement closes. And that timing matters more than most people realize. You could pay your card in full every month and still look risky if your balance is high when the statement posts. That's why so many people say, I pay everything off, why is my score still stuck? Because the system isn't watching your due date, it's watching your snapshot. The safest zone, the zone where scores start climbing consistently, is under 10%. Not sometimes, consistently. If you have a $1,000 limit, that means keeping your reported balance under $100. That feels restrictive at first, especially if you're used to using credit as a cash flow tool. But this one change alone can move your score within a few billing cycles. I've seen 40-point jumps from this step when it's done correctly. Here's where people get tripped up. They try to fix utilization by paying everything once a month, right before the due date. That's not enough. What matters is when the statement closes, not when the bill is due. If your balance is high on statement day, that's the number that gets reported. This leads us naturally into step 5 later, but don't jump ahead yet. For now, understand this. Low balances send a signal of control. High balances send a signal of dependence. The system doesn't care that you plan to pay it off. It only cares what you're using right now. Now let's talk about step 3, because this is where well-meaning adults sabotage themselves trying to clean things up. Closing old credit cards feels responsible. It feels like adulthood, less clutter, fewer accounts. But credit doesn't reward simplicity. It rewards history. Length of credit history matters, especially as you get older. Older accounts show stability. They show that you've managed credit over time without blowing up. When you close an old card, 2 things happen. First, your available credit shrinks, which can instantly raise your utilization percentage. Second, over time, you shorten your average account age. Both can pull your score down. If a card has no annual fee, keeping it open is almost always the smarter move, even if you barely use it. Use it once every few months for a small purchase, pay it off, and let it age quietly. That quiet aging is powerful. I've seen people lose years of progress because they closed accounts thinking they were being financially disciplined. Discipline in credit is not about cutting, it's about managing. Now, step 4 is where emotions creep in. This is about building credit slowly, not desperately. Every time you apply for credit, there's a hard inquiry. One inquiry isn't a disaster, but multiple inquiries in a short period tell lenders you're searching. Searching looks like stress. Stress looks like risk, and risk gets penalized. This is especially important if you're rebuilding in your 40s or 50s. At this stage, lenders expect calm behavior. Rapid applications feel like instability. Credit is not something you fix in a weekend. It's a system you align with over months. Apply intentionally, space things out, let accounts age, let payments stack. Momentum in credit comes from patience, not urgency. Now, before we move into the acceleration phase, I want to pause and say this clearly. If your score has been stuck for years, it's not because you're bad with money. It's because no one explained the rules in plain language. Most people are working hard but playing the wrong game. In the next part, I'm going to show you the method that ties utilization, timing, and payment behavior together. This is step 5, the 2-payment method. It's simple, but when done correctly, it changes how your account is reported every single month. And after that, we'll talk about step 6. The one step most people avoid because they assume nothing is wrong. That assumption is expensive. In part 3, we'll put all of this together and show you how people move from stuck to solid without stress, without obsession, and without wrecking their finances in the process. Now we get to the step that separates people who slowly build credit from people who get stuck for years without understanding why. This is step 5, and it's one of the most underused tools in the entire credit system. I call it the two-payment method. Most people pay their credit card once a month. They wait for the bill, then they pay it. That feels responsible, but it's not optimal. Credit scoring doesn't reward responsibility. It rewards patterns. And one payment per month often allows your balance to stay high for too long. Here's how the two-payment method works. You make one payment in the middle of the billing cycle, before the statement closes. This payment knocks your balance down early. Then you make your second payment before the due date, clearing whatever remains. What this does is simple but powerful. It keeps your reported utilization low throughout the entire month, not just at the end. Lenders see lower balances, less risk, more control. This method alone can accelerate score improvement faster than almost anything else, especially if utilization has been your problem. I've watched people gain 20 to 30 points in a few months just by changing when they pay, not how much they pay. Timing matters. Credit is a reporting game, not a morality test. Now let's talk about step 6. The step almost no one wants to do because it forces you to look closely. Checking your credit report. Most people assume their report is fine. That assumption costs money. Errors are common. Late payments reported incorrectly. Accounts that should have fallen off years ago. Debts that don't belong to you. Every error drags your score down quietly. And here's the part most people don't realize. Fixing errors can improve your score without changing your behavior at all. No new cards, no new payments, just corrections. You are entitled to check your credit report for free, and you should do it regularly, especially if you're over 40 and planning for bigger financial moves. Mortgages, refinancing, downsizing, investing. Credit mistakes compound over time if you ignore them. Clean reports build leverage. Now I want to zoom out for a moment and talk directly to you if you're over 40 and still living paycheck to paycheck. This isn't a character flaw. It's a system problem. You were never taught how credit actually works, only how to use it. You were told to pay your bills and don't get into debt, but no one explained reporting cycles, utilization snapshots, or inquiry pacing. So you work harder, earn more, and still feel stuck. A higher income without a stronger credit profile doesn't buy freedom. It buys stress at a higher level. Credit is leverage. Used correctly, it lowers costs and opens doors. Used blindly, it keeps you paying more for the same life. This is why I push consistency over intensity. You don't need perfect credit. You need predictable credit behavior. Pay on time, every time. Keep balances low, not just paid. Let accounts age. Apply slowly. Pay twice, not once. Check your report. That's the system. And when you align with it, the score follows. Not overnight, but steadily. And steady is what wins. If you're listening to this right now, ask yourself one honest question. Which step are you not doing consistently? Not which one you know, but which one you actually practice. Because knowledge without execution changes nothing. In the final part, I'm going to pull all 6 steps together into a simple weekly rhythm you can follow without thinking about credit every day. A rhythm that works whether you're rebuilding from the low 600s or trying to lock in the best rates possible. That's where this stops being theory and becomes a system you can live with. Now let me bring all of this together, because credit only works when it becomes boring and automatic. The biggest mistake people make is treating credit like a project instead of a system. Projects end. Systems run quietly in the background. So here is how a financially disciplined adult over 40 actually runs their credit without stress. You don't think about it every day. You don't obsess over scores. You follow a simple weekly rhythm. First rule. Every bill is on autopay for at least the minimum, no exceptions. That removes fear, forgetfulness, and excuses. Late payments destroy trust instantly, and trust is what your score is measuring. Second rule, you check balances once a week, not daily. You're not reacting emotionally, you're steering calmly. If a balance is creeping up, you adjust spending before it becomes a utilization problem. Third rule, mid-cycle payment. This is where most people separate themselves from the average borrower. You make that early payment every month, even if it's small. That single habit keeps utilization low when it matters most, when lenders take the snapshot. Fourth rule, you leave old accounts alone. No emotional closures, no cutting up cards out of frustration. Age is power in credit. Time is leverage. Fifth rule, new credit is intentional, never impulsive. You don't apply because you're bored or tempted. You apply because it fits a plan. One inquiry at a time, spaced out, controlled. And sixth rule, every few months you review your credit report like a business owner reviews their books. Calmly, precisely. Errors get challenged. Old issues get cleared. Nothing drags behind you quietly. This is how adults win the credit game. Not with hacks, not with tricks, but with structure. And here's the hard truth I want you to hear clearly. If you're over 40 and still living paycheck to paycheck, credit is not your enemy. Misunderstanding credit is. A 700 score doesn't just save money. It buys options. It buys breathing room. It lowers pressure. It lets you make moves when opportunities show up instead of scrambling when emergencies hit. This isn't about impressing banks. It's about protecting your future self. The version of you 10 years from now will either thank you or resent you for what you do next. And the work isn't dramatic. It's quiet, repetitive, unsexy, but it works. If you take one thing from this entire video, let it be this. Credit rewards calm consistency, not urgency. Stop trying to fix everything at once. Build the system, follow the rhythm, let time do the heavy lifting. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you right now? Are you rebuilding, stabilizing, or pushing toward elite credit? Drop your number in the comments, not for judgment, but for clarity. Because clarity is the first step toward control. If this helped you, stay with this channel. I don't teach hype. I teach systems that work in the real world. Stay disciplined, stay patient, and remember, financial freedom doesn't start with more money. It starts with control.